why is user experience so important? What are some of the main things that we should be thinking about with user experience?
I mean, there's two parts of every piece of technology, right? There's what we've built, and then it's what people see. And so often we forget the human element, and user experience is bringing that to the forefront. I came into this world because I was an economics student, and we were taught people behave certain ways, and all our models break down because people don't behave that way. And in the real world, user experience plays the role of figuring out and translating what do people really do and how does that intersect with the technology we're building. So what it means is that we're really taking into account how people act, how they behave in the real world, so that we're not just designing what we think will work, but what we know will work.
This is a huge conundrum for most businesses because normally they start out with the goal in mind of making money and forget that we're actually selling products and services to human beings here. And I feel like as entrepreneurs, especially online entrepreneurs, and I can put my hand up, I've been there, is I've mostly optimized for money. User experience actually is a part of that, optimizing for money, but at the same time you're making the experience better. And I guess there's so many psychological things that come into it on how people feel when they purchase the product and how they feel when they own the product and for how long they own the product, and the energy and excitement they have around a brand that they want to share with people because of the experience they had purchasing it. And I'd love to dive into some cool things that you have tweaked and stuff like that. But first, we'll talk about that shortly. But where do people mostly go wrong with their user experience? Is it just that they just don't know it is a thing? And people that try, what do they think they need to do versus what they actually should be doing for humans?
Yeah, I think we've come a long way. So in the beginning, we would just design the thing and we'd say, here's what I'm selling, here's what it costs, and click yes to buy. And I think we've matured beyond that to including, things that make you feel a certain way or understanding, the context of the person. But there's still a big gap between the ideal persona and how we think they'll behave and then how they actually act in the real world. And that's where the power of an A/B test comes into play, where we can actually put two different experiences out in the world and really measure how people are responding to it. So I think that's the gap. That's like the magic black box that a lot of companies have a handle on, but most companies are missing out on, is how do we use something like A/B testing to really learn what people really do, as opposed to like what we model that we think they should do. I'd say over the last 10 to 15 years, we've done a much better job of asking people questions, figuring out their pain points, but we aren't doing a great job of translating that into designs that help them feel comfortable, have clear expectations on what's going to happen, get excited, feel like it's something they want to share or something they're enthusiastic about. So I think there's still a long way to go, but at least we're starting to talk about it.
So those questions are, I guess, when it comes into sales and marketing, a lot of them would be helping people remove objections, I guess. And this is an assumption. Would it be helping people remove or at least understand their objections so they don't have any fear in going through and purchasing the product? And the opposite, they're like, oh, cool, I understand the shipping process, understand how long it's going to take, understand like it's going to take maybe a little bit longer to manufacture because we put a lot of love into what we do. Like, is that a big component of it?
Yeah, it's this balancing act about information, right? So whenever I'm thinking about optimization on the web, I want to think about a physical store. And so you have to think of like the storefront, that first impression, like what are people feeling when they see and driving by your store or stopping in for the first time? But then you also have to think about the experience of comparing the products, like having two things physically in front of you. What's the information you need to compare which one's better? Do you have too many choices? Do you have 100 different shampoo bottles to choose from? How will you focus in? How can I help direct your attention to the one that's going to fit you best rather than having you read every label? So there's a lot of analogies around, giving that overall feel, as well as being able to really focus in on browsing behaviors or things that are going to help really seal that decision point. And for things like free shipping or how long is it going to take to get there, that's where that analogy starts to fall apart, because those are things that are so obvious in the real world. And so many stores are not making it obvious in a digital context. They make you work for it. So if you don't know how long it's going to take or how much it's going to cost you to get it, you're going to really get lost along the path versus just like always having it be obvious that you're physically in a store and you can just grab the item and take it home right now. So those are often like the lowest hanging fruits, or the things that just set really clear expectations about what's about to happen. And then the more nuanced things is, how do I compare products? How do I move about the store? What's the checkout experience like?
I really like that. When people go to our site, buyingonlinebusinesses.com, we have a selector of 3 buckets of people that, you know, where they're at on their journey and what they need, what they want and what they need help with, or what they think they want and need help with. And then they can select and go through their own sort of journey, and it ends up to a point where, like, all right, you can get this free tool. All right, we have this course, or we can help you in this sort of way. I guess that's one way that you can help people come to your site, with the very broad different positions they're in their journey, in their buying experience, if they're even buying or just checking you out. What are some other ways that you can help people select what direction they should take to get them the best product or service for them? That's like actually for them, not just a, hey, I'm a business owner, I want to make sure I can sell as many of these products to the right people, but like, no, like the service. How do we, do you have other ways that that's done?
Yeah, I think the most commonly done way is to have different like landing page experiences. So if we already know something's different about you because of what you did before you get to this website, we should absolutely create, I call it a curated experience. People sometimes call it personalized. It usually doesn't go as far as being about me, but more about me as a category, or the category I'm in.
Unfortunately.
But things that already know what's going on with me and what I already know or don't. So that's the basics, just like getting them to the right place and then guiding them to a specific path. But in that, you do kind of give them the right exits, because if they ended up in the wrong spot, you don't want to hide, you know, here's the emergency exit, or here's the, you know, take a left over here if you're looking for a t-shirt and I think you're looking for shoes. But then just like more generally, how do we guide people? People have different purposes or ways they like to move about information. So I like to think people who want to be searchers. They want to like type in the word. They want to look for something really specific. How can we help that person? I think about people who want to just browse and kind of naturally come across things. They're the ones that like think about the physical store and what's on the end caps, what's going to capture their attention. We have to do the same thing digitally. And then, you know, there are people who are just looking for someone who's going to be that, you know, personal shopping assistant. And that can show up in a lot of different ways. Some stores are doing things like having a chat bot that's going to help be able to answer questions or point them a certain direction. I think more effective than that are things like quizzes, where it's like, here are the 3 or 5 guiding questions about who you are as a consumer, what you're looking for, what the occasion is. And then we're going to point you to a subset of products. And then there's just a bunch of other ways using navigation and other design elements to really just help people feel secure, guide them to the best-selling products instead of the all products list. Put the new products first, or put something that looks recommended for them based on what else they browse for. So there's a lot of smart ways to do it, but a lot of potential complexity can come from trying to explore all the options at once too.